we are supposed to discuss is the nervous system, that how it is divided, and we are supposed to discuss the formation of spinal nerve, which we discussed yesterday that it is going to supply your body. So let's see how it is formed and how various ganglia, especially sympathetic chain, is supposed to be there, and how your autonomic nervous system is going to communicate with that of your central nervous system. So let's see. You can see here in this first diagram that we have got the brain and this is the spinal cord, and they both form the central nervous system. Okay? And what is the peripheral nervous system? Definitely the nerves coming out from this spinal cord called as spinal nerves, and other nerves that are coming or are attached to the brain are called as cranial nerves. So they both comprise of your peripheral nervous system, right? Now we have to see the formation of this spinal nerve, because it's very important. Sometimes it comes in exam how to draw. So we have taken the transverse section, or you imagine the cut section of the spinal cord. So what you see here, this is outer white matter. Can you see it? And this butterfly shaped central area or egg-shaped structure is the gray matter. And we discussed the gray matter consists of multiple neurons inside, and white matter consists of various axons or nerve fibers running in it. Okay? Now, we know that the spinal nerve which we are going to draw are in the form of 31 paired nerves. Paired means that they are present on this side and also on this side, making a pair, right? And as we know that your spinal cord, as you can see in the dummy, that your skull case is having the brain inside, and your vertebral column, which you see as that upper cervical vertebrae, which are 7 in number. Then you have got the thoracic vertebrae, these are 12. Then you see the lumbar, which are 5 in number, and then the sacrum, that makes a collective one piece made up of 5 sacral vertebrae. And finally, in the deep-seated area, you have got coccyx. So your vertebral column is made up of 33 vertebrae, right? But spinal nerves we see is in 31 pair. So they originate from the segments of spinal cord. Is it clear up to this? Okay, we continue to the formation. So your spinal nerve starts from the dorsal column of this cut section of the spinal cord. It has got white matter and this is a grey matter. So let's first discuss the grey matter. Grey matter has got the dorsal horn, or you call them as posterior horn, right? And this one is ventral horn or anterior horn. You get it? It is according to the location. Anteriorly lying or ventral lying. Posteriorly lying or dorsal lying. And you can see another horn which is present on the lateral aspect. You call it as lateral grey horn, right? So this is how you observe the grey matter in the spinal cord. So spinal nerve, from where it gets origin, it has got nerve rootlets. They combine to form the dorsal root of spinal nerve. And from the ventral horn or anterior horn nerve rootlets, they combine to form the ventral root. Okay, now you can see there is formation of two roots. This dorsal root, which is also afferent in nature. Afferent means that it is taking information towards your CNS or spinal cord. And what type of information it is carrying? It is carrying sensory information. So we can say that this dorsal root is afferent or sensory in nature. Okay? Pure sensory. No other information is going through this root. Only the sensory information. Now, what happens with the ventral root? That it comes as an efferent root, right? So, this is having motor sensations in it. So, we can easily say that this ventral root consists of only motor sensations. Only motor information are there. Simply, the sensory information through these afferent fibers are entering into your CNS, and then when the neurons are seated over here and command is being reached towards these neurons of this anterior horn, from here the motor root comes out taking the motor information towards the effectors, right? Simple क्या हो गया कि आपकी dorsal root sensation लेके जा रही है अंदर, right? और जो ventral है या बाहर आ रही है, ये आपका motor action के लिए motor information लेके बाहर आ रहा है. That is why it is afferent and this is efferent. So these two are making an initial segment of the spinal nerve. There is something special about the dorsal root or sensory root, that it is showing a swelling called as dorsal root ganglion or called as sensory ganglia of the dorsal root of spinal nerve. What it carries? As you know, the ganglia is what? Collection of neurons outside the CNS. We discussed last time. Okay? These neurons, which were of pseudo-unipolar variety or unipolar variety, they have got a central process that becomes axon towards your CNS or the gray matter of spinal cord. Okay? And it has got peripheral process that is towards the spinal nerve. Is it clear about the location of the neuron and their processes? And they are seated in this dorsal root ganglion. Now, we have to complete this spinal nerve. This is the motor root. This is the pure sensory. इधर और कोई sensations नहीं है या कोई information नहीं है except motor के. इधर sensory के अलावा कोई information नहीं है. तो हम कह सकते हैं कि sensory जो ganglia है इसमें neurons पड़े हैं, उसका central process CNS से connect होगा और peripheral process आपकी nerve के अंदर होगा. Okay? Now you can see that these both are joining to form this portion, trunk of spinal nerve, which is very short. अब यहाँ क्या हो रहा है? There is mixing of the fibers. Can you see? Because this is just like a thoroughfare now. You can see the sensory fibers that were going towards here are supposed to be present here. And the motor information that is coming out is also present here. So we can see it as a thoroughfare. Is it there? Okay, what is going to happen next? That spinal nerve, which has got this short trunk region, is again going to divide now into the dorsal ramus. Ramus means branch, which is thinner one. What is going to do it? It would be supplying the back of your body and will give rise to muscular branches and the cutaneous branches. Right? Means covering your skin and the muscles. Okay? What happens to this thicker portion? This becomes the ventral ramus. Right? It also gives rise to cutaneous branches and the muscular branches. For your, if you see, you are looking to the back, the dorsal spinal nerve or its rama is going on the posterior aspect, right? And the ventral ramus is covering the lateral body wall and the anterior body wall. In addition to this, that ventral ramus is going to cover or supply your upper limb and your lower limb. Because we have got 31 pair. पूरे के पूरे यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो, they are giving rise to these 31. Among this, there are cervical 8 nerves, thoracic 12 nerves, lumbar 5. That make 31 number of spinal nerves. Okay? So, is it clear up to far? Is it clear or any ambiguity? So let me repeat that this ventral root, we are talking about root, is pure motor. This dorsal root is pure sensory. Okay? But there is a mixing when these two roots meet at the trunk. Now it has got the sensory and the motor both. Now it is dividing into the dorsal ramus. This again carries the sensory and the motor. मिक्सिंग हो चुकी है और ये अब जो सप्लाई है ये दोनों तरह की इंफॉर्मेशन लेके जा रही है. सेंसरी यू कैन अब्जॉर्ब दिस cutaneous के लिए और ये जो मोटर इज गोइंग फॉर द muscular branches. Same is happening here. These both fibers which are in the trunk mix, they are again moving in the ventral ramus as well. So again here the cutaneous is taking the sensory information and the branches towards the muscular region is the motor one. Is it clear? यहाँ पे बिल्कुल मिक्सिंग नहीं है. इस तरफ आपको ट्रंक में भी और एमआई में भी दोनों तरह की मिक्सिंग मिल रही है. इसका मतलब है जब भी इंफॉर्मेशन आपके लोअर लिम्ब से फ्रॉम योर अपर लिम्ब और योर एंटीरियर एंड लैटरल बॉडी वॉल और डॉर्सल रैमस से कलेक्ट होके टुवर्ड्स योर सीएनएस जाएंगी तो क्या होगा? यहाँ से मिक्स है रैमस में, यहाँ पे आके भी मिक्सिंग है, यहाँ पे अब इनकी डिमार्केशन हो जाएगी कि सेंसरी वाले डॉर्सल रूट का रास्ता इख्तियार करेंगे. You get it? And when they reach here, the motor fibers will take this route. Again the cycle repeats and you see that there then again becomes mixing and here also what type of information is there. Okay? What else we are supposed to learn? As you can see, we are looking to the posterior aspect of body and these vertebrae are exposed and you can well observe the yellow color. These are the spinal nerves. They are coming out from the intervertebral foramen on both sides because when one vertebrae is above the other vertebrae, there lies a foramen in between the two, right? And that will be showing the exit of this spinal nerve. Is it clear? These spinal nerves now cover this region. Okay? The spinal nerves, as we told, are 31 pairs. From the level of T2 up to the level of T12, right? Up to here, the spinal nerve will not be showing these division towards other region. Rather, what they do? They will move just inside the spaces between the ribs. So they become the typical spinal nerve. Understand? There were 31 pair. Is it clear? उसमें से जो T2 से लेके आपके पास T12 तक थी, यहाँ से क्योंकि हमारे पास thoracic cage is lying there and have got ribs, so these nerves will enter the place in between the ribs and become the typical spinal nerve. What else happened to rest of the spinal nerves, which were above in the cervical region and below in the lumbar and spinal region? What they do? They are specially making or combining to form a special network called as plexus. The upper cervical nerves, they will form the cervical plexus. The cervical few lower nerves and the thoracic one, they will form the brachial plexus. And rest दरम्यान में हमने डिस्कस कर लिया कि वो आपकी typical spinal nerve बन जाएंगी. What happens to the lumbar region and sacral? They could be forming in the lumbar plexus and the sacral plexus. So this is how your spinal nerves are going to divide. आपको ये दिख रहा है कि they are just running transversely and completing their course, isn't it? But in the cervical region, they are forming cervical plexus. Then they are forming the brachial plexus. And T2 to T12, they are just forming typical spinal nerve in your thoracic cage if I draw it. In then what happens to the lumbar nerves? They take part in the lumbar plexus, and then rest of the sacral, they are going to form the sacral plexus. Is it clear about the distribution? Okay. Now we have to see another important thing, that our central nervous system is there, and we have got an autonomic nervous system in our body that consists of sympathetic system and parasympathetic system. You must have heard about them, that you are supposed to be ready for the fight, flight and fright in case of sympathetic nervous system, and when you are in a quiet situation, your parasympathetic system takes over, right? And this system is purely motor in nature but involuntary. How? Because the autonomic nervous system is going to supply your heart. Your heartbeat is not under control of your will. Neither your respiration, neither your GIT secretion, either glands or either the visceral muscles like smooth muscles or cardiac muscles. They are involuntary, so being supplied by the autonomic nervous system. And these central nervous system or somatic system, which we will see in the presentation as well, is dealing with your voluntary control for your skeletal muscle through which we are moving. We are aware of. We can move, we can sit, we can stand. But autonomic nervous system is working in the body of every person without awareness. Either we are sleeping, our heart are beating. Is it happening? Okay. So we should see that where lies these two sympathetic and parasympathetic system. If you see that this is the vertebral canal carrying the spinal cord. So on its both sides, what we see, there is a chain of sympathetic ganglia, again bilaterally present. If we see the bony landmark, it should be from C1 up to the coccyx, tip of the coccyx. This is the end level of the sympathetic chain on both sides. And finally they meet here at the level of ganglion impar. And this is how they are present. How they look like? They just look like if you hold that rolling pin, tasbih. If you are holding a tasbih, it is just like that. कि अगर इसको मैं इस तरह connect कर दूं, and if you are holding it, you can observe the sympathetic chain on both sides. Are you getting my point? Okay. As we know that our autonomic nervous system is working autonomously without our awareness. But you see, when we are frightened, say in case of viva, our heartbeat is raised, or in case of any fearful situation, but still we can make calm ourselves. Just say, okay, this is just exam, not to worry, or somebody console us by saying these words. So what happens? We feel a little bit relaxed. It means our autonomic nervous system has something to deal with your central nervous system. Means they are communicating. So your this autonomic nervous system, which is sympathetic, is coming under the heading of peripheral nervous system. But as you know that it is being connected with your central nervous system. But how? Let's see. Now we can observe this is the sympathetic chain ganglia, one ganglia, and there is a connection of fiber, and we can draw another ganglia and keep on drawing. Right? Okay. What is going to happen? That how your spinal nerve is going to communicate with your sympathetic ganglia. Okay. Let's see. Here there is the lateral horn. It also carries the neurons in it. These neurons give rise to preganglionic fibers. Okay? These fibers coming down through this motor route and descends down and reach towards this sympathetic ganglia. Can you see that? Now this coming fibers are called as preganglionic, or we also call them as white rami communicants. Why we are calling this preganglionic as white rami? Because they are myelinated. Whenever an axon is covered by myelin sheath, that gives a white color. So preganglionic fibers reaching to the sympathetic ganglion is also called as white rami, or you call it as myelinated fibers. Okay? Now, from this ganglia, these fibers have come. The ganglion is also filled with neurons. As we know, the ganglia is the collection of nerve cell bodies. Is it clear? From here, the fibers may get back towards the spinal nerve, its ventral root. And now, what type of fibers they are called as? Post-ganglionic. You understand the term? जो चीज जो फाइबर गैंग्लियन तक आ रही है, you call it as pre, right? Neurons are lying here, these are synapsing with it, and from here again may fibers move back towards the ventral ramus of the spinal nerve as post-ganglionic. Ganglion के बाद post-ganglionic. Okay, these post-ganglionic can also be called as grey rami. Why grey? Because they are unmyelinated. जब fibers के इर्द गिर्द myelin sheath नहीं होगी, they will be appearing as a grey tone. Is it clear? So this post-ganglionic fiber may enter here, and they will enter through this ganglionic sympathetic chain towards all the ventral rami of all the spinal nerves. Right? Okay. But these preganglionic fibers, they are present in the thoracic region. If I leave this cervical region of this spinal cord, so just from this thoracic region and up to the lumbar L1, 2 level almost, this level will be addressing the white rami communicant. ये आपकी sympathetic chain थी, इस तक जो हमने ये lateral gray horn से fibers उसके न्यूक्लियस से preganglionic निकाली थी और वो white rami के तौर पे यहाँ आई थी, ये सिर्फ thoracic से upper lumbar region तक होता है और ये आपका sympathetic system है. इसको इसकी हम sympathetic system को कहते हैं thoraco-lumbar outflow. ये sympathetic आपके जो गैंग्लिया थे ये तो डिफरेंट सारे प्रेजेंट हैं, लेकिन इनका कनेक्शन डायरेक्टली जो आपके स्पाइनल कॉर्ड से था वो आपका थोरेसिक और लंबर 1, 2 तक है ना. इससे ऊपर आपको इसका कनेक्शन दिख रहा है और नीचे भी आपको इसका डायरेक्ट लिंक स्पाइनल कॉर्ड से नहीं मिलेगा. इसलिए द सिंपैथेटिक चेन इज नोन एज thoraco-lumbar outflow. So what is for that cervical or cranial region and this sacral region? There lies the parasympathetic system, which is again an autonomic nervous system. It has got few cranial nerves, like you have got 3, 7, 9 and 10. These cranial nerves will be showing the component of parasympathetic system, and leaving this thoracolumbar area, now we have got this sacral segment which is at the S2, S3, S4 level. When we cut this level, it will be addressing fibers of this parasympathetic system. So can we call it as craniosacral outflow? Is it clear? The sympathetic system is called as thoracic or thoracolumbar outflow, right? And as parasympathetic system has to deal with your cranial nerve, so called as cranio, and from that of your sacral region called as sacral outflow, craniosacral. ये नाम आपको याद हो जाने चाहिए. If somebody asks you कि sympathetic system को और क्या कहते हैं, तो you would say thoracolumbar outflow. ठीक है? कि उससे जो फाइबर्स निकल रही हैं उनको आप ये कहेंगे. और अगर पैरासिम्पैथेटिक का इंट्रोडक्शन पूछा जाए तो यू विल बी सेइंग दैट इट हैज गॉट क्रेनियोसैक्रल आउटफ्लो. राइट? दिस इज अ जनरल मैप कि आपको पता हो कि स्पाइनल नर्व किस तरह बनी थी. इसका डोर्सल रूट प्योर सेंसरी है, इसका वेंट्रल रूट प्योर मोटर है. मिक्सिंग वहां हुई जहां इन दोनों के रूट ने ट्रंक बनाया. यहाँ दोनों किस्म की इंफॉर्मेशन इकट्ठी है. क्यों है? क्योंकि अब जो ये रेमाए में डिवाइड हो रहे हैं, थिन डॉर्सल एंड अ थिकर वेंट्रल, इसमें दोनों तरह की इंफॉर्मेशन ने एफरेंट और इफरेंट के तौर पे मूव करना है, राइट? और हमारे पास डॉर्सल रूट गैंग्लियन था। अब हमने इसके दोनों, अच्छा जो चीज इस तरफ है वो सेम आपको इस तरफ मिलेगी, बिकॉज द पेयर्ड ऑर्गन इज देयर। जस्ट फॉर अंडरस्टैंडिंग पर्पस हमने इसको एक तरफ ड्रॉ करके, जस्ट फॉर टू मेक इट इजियर, राइट? सो यू आर लुकिंग इनटू दिस सिंपैथेटिक चेन. ओके, what is going to happen? As we say that sympathetic system is just at the level of thoracic lumbar outflow. So what happens for your head and neck, and what happens towards your lower region? It means sympathetic system has to connect or communicate. What happens? So concentrate. This white rami, which is coming from the lateral horn and reaches towards this as a preganglionic fiber, a white rami communicans. They may take 3 routes. ये बहुत अहम है. जो फाइबर्स आपके गैंग्लियन तक आई, एक फॉर इंस्टेंस एक ये कार है, ये चली एज अ प्रीगैंग्लियोनिक और इसने आके इस स्टैंड पे खड़े हो गए. तो ये किस तरह के, ये 3 तरह के रास्ते लेगा. What will be it doing? First of all, it may come here and synapse with the other neuron. One way of communication. The other way is that the fibers, if I draw another sympathetic ganglion, these white rami may ascend up and communicate the neurons of upper ganglia. Is it clear? And it can take another route, that it may descend downward in the lower ganglia to make synapse with the neurons over there. Is it clear? Okay. There is the third popular way, that this white rami may just traverse without synapsing and reaches towards another group of the ganglia called as prevertebral ganglia. ये जो sympathetic ganglia थे, इनका एक और नाम भी है, इनको आप paravertebral ganglia भी कहते हैं. So what is the difference between paravertebral and prevertebral? Can you guess? पैरा क्या होगा, इससे समझ लेते हैं. जो इसके दोनों तरफ ऑन लैटरल एस्पेक्ट होगा, जैसे सिंपैथेटिक चेन की, सिंपैथेटिक चेन को आप पैरावर्टिब्रल भी कह सकते हैं. पैरा मींस अराउंड ऑन बोथ साइड्स. और प्रीवर्टिब्रल क्या होगा? अगर आपको डमी में इंटीरियरली दिखाऊं जैसे स्केलेटन में, तो इसके जस्ट एंटीरियर टू इट देयर अगेन लाई द गैंग्लिया. वी विल डिस्कस. They are called as prevertebral. कुछ ऐसे समझ लें कि ये जो साइड्स पे थे सिंपैथेटिक, ये पैरा थे, और जो फ्रंट पे था ये प्रीवर्टिब्रल गैंग्लिया था. अब सिंपैथेटिक चेन यहाँ से जो हमने ड्रॉ की, कि यहाँ से विदाउट साइनेप्सिस एज अ स्प्लेनिक नर्व ये प्रीवर्टिब्रल आ रहा है, तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि यहाँ से डायरेक्टली एंटीरियर लाइन प्रीवर्टिब्रल गैंग्लिया तक जो फाइबर्स हैं, ये भी एक रूट है सिंपैथेटिक प्रीगैंग्लियोनिक फाइबर्स का. फिर यहाँ आके इनके न्यूरॉन से दे विल साइनैप्स एंड अगेन फ्रॉम हियर these fibers will come out as a postganglionic and will supply the viscera, the area to which it is going to supply. Right? Is it clear so far? कि आपका ये वेंट्रल जो आपका रेमस था, इससे किस तरह आप यहाँ से स्टार्ट करेंगे कि लेटरल हॉर्न में जो प्रीगैंग्लियोनिक फाइबर्स के न्यूरॉन्स हैं, इन्होंने मोटर रूट किया, फिर इन्होंने ये वेंट्रल रेमस से टुवर्ड्स गैंग्लियन एज अ व्हाइट रेमाई आए, राइट? या तो ये यहाँ साइनैप्स कर जाएंगे, वन रूट, दे विल कम्युनिकेट. ईदर दे विल असेंड अपवर्ड, ईदर दे विल डिसेंड टुवर्ड्स लोअर गैंग्लिया, और मे ट्रैवर्स थ्रू इट to reach the prevertebral ganglia. And the few prevertebral ganglia you can name according to the major vessels lying in your branches of aorta, like celiac ganglion, like superior mesenteric ganglion and fluxus, and inferior mesenteric ganglion and fluxus, and the preaortic. These all are present anterior to this vertebral column, and of course related to the branches of aorta which runs in your abdomen, right? This is the main framework which you will observe. Now we will see a few pictures with the help of PPT. So kindly now